sit back with a sarsaparilla.
Wow, welcome to the podcast. It's 20 to 9, Friday night, just got back from the office. Trying to put this thing together for first thing Saturday morning. Whew, it's going to be a hodgepodge podcast. It's going to be a hodgepodge podcast. It's all sorts of random crap. Just had the week from hell. You ever one of those weeks? I mean, I have a client, sad situation Monday, needs me to jump on a project. I'm just like, yeah, man, I'll do it. And then constantly for the next 5 freaking days, it's, hey, can you drop everything and do this? Can you drop everything and do this? Can you drop everything and do this? I didn't touch the project until 6 o'clock tonight. I got it done. I'll probably drop it off by hand at the dude's house tomorrow. I feel so bad for not getting done sooner, but I guess she came back today at 3 o'clock because I was hungover from my birthday celebration the night before. Didn't drink that much, but sometimes gin has that effect on me. And I come back at 3 o'clock, take a quick nap, come downstairs, and Marie's like, hey, you take a look at Jack's Coverdale Education Savings Account contribution, or distribution, whatever the frick it was. It is like an hour and 10 minutes later, after going through the freaking IRS regulations with literally instructions like, multiply this figure by a fraction, the numerator of which is this, plus this, and the denominator is this, minus this, and then take that. Unfreaking believable. And then it turns out TD Ameritrade doesn't even keep the records that I need to do the calculation. I wanted to frickin' scream. So finally at 5:30, I'm like, I'm just going back to the office. I drop everything at the office here. I come home, I gotta drop everything. So it's not been a good freaking week. I should just be getting like stone cold drunk right now. In fact, I still might. I'm not sure. Anyway, it is a good podcast. I think you're gonna like it. Got some funny stuff, maybe a little bit lighter than usual. But quite frankly, on my lighter podcast, I get a lot more positive feedback. So yeah, I'll keep hitting with some of the more serious stuff, but I'm going to try to lighten up quite a bit. As always, thanks for listening. Okay, I want you to run, don't walk, to your phone and download the March 11th episode of Econ Talk. It's pretty lengthy, and maybe the last 10, 20 minutes may not be worth listening to, but it's about artificial intelligence. I don't want to say it blew me away, but boy, it filled in a lot of gaps in my knowledge. Like, for instance, I didn't know what artificial intelligence is. I hear about it all the time, but I never really knew exactly what the definition was. And this artificial intelligence expert, she said, artificial intelligence is merely any technology that makes decisions for us. So she goes, anti-lock brakes have AI in them. And her whole point here, and again, and she wasn't, that's what I liked about it so much. She wasn't an alarmist, like, this is going to be the Matrix world where the robots take over. Although she doesn't, she makes a couple of comments that you think maybe she's going in that direction, but she doesn't. But she's not an alarmist, and she seems pretty cool, a pretty rational thinker, and she understands this AI world very, very well. And her whole point is, as AI makes more and more decisions for us, she gave all sorts of little examples that by themselves just seem like nothing. She goes, we're more and more going to be deprived of our agency. We're not going to be making decisions for ourselves until you have just everything you're doing is kind of pre-programmed, scripted for you. And she gave examples from like, when she puts her car in reverse, the stereo volume on her radio goes down automatically. She has no choice. And she goes, it's not a federal regulation. There's no studies that prove that backing up with the stereo loud results in greater deaths or, traffic accidents. But someone at the motor company made the decision that this would be a good safety feature, and they put it in the car, and she can't override it. Her radio gets turned down when she puts it in reverse. And she goes, there's more and more of that type of stuff being done by the private industry. And then they talk about Amazon, how it's not necessarily making decisions for you, but are kind of grooving your choices to the point that you're not even sure exactly, what exactly you're choosing and what Amazon's choosing for you. So when you click on something, they say, customers who bought this also liked, or also bought this, or recommended products, or Amazon choice. And at one level, yeah, that's just all advertising. But this is really, really freaking good advertising. Let's face it, I like that. I like the fact that Amazon chose me other products or books I might be interested in. I love it on Spotify. I have a playlist on Spotify, and then they tell me down below, here are other songs that you might like of this ilk. I find all sorts of great songs I never knew existed. And Amazon, I see all sorts of great books or products that I didn't know existed. I like it. And that's why I think that's why she's saying this AI can be so insidious that it's actually borderline making decisions for you. And again, I'm not quite buying into that yet. And she wasn't either. She just said these are things you have to watch, though, how much the landscape is shifting. And then she gave a fascinating example. Amazon recently started selling microwave ovens. It's Amazon microwave. And it's Alexa controlled. And she kind of breaks it down. Why are they doing this? And they're $60. I guess they're good microwave ovens, and they're $60. And you can talk to it, and it'll pop your popcorn. And she said, but now it's Alexa controlled, and now it knows what you're doing in that microwave. So she said, let's say that you have a subscription on Amazon for popcorn, microwave popcorn. Now they know, because you have the Amazon microwave, they can tell when you're going to run out of popcorn, because you bought 20 bags of it, and you've now put 20 into the Alexa controlled microwave, and they know when you're running out. So she thinks they'll come to a point where Amazon will just automatically ship you that next. And how cool would that be? Amazon knows when I'm running out of whatever it is. And she said this stuff is just coming on steadily and faster, where we're just, we're losing our decision-making ability, or decision-making authority. Amazon and these other tech giants are trying to take those decisions out of our hands. Again, it's all voluntary. I want to emphasize that, and therefore it has a soft spot in my heart. I'm saying, well, if I don't want the popcorn, I can just stop it. So, no. But it's so freaking convenient. The host, Russ Roberts, saying, I actually really like this stuff. And she's saying, yeah, she goes, so do I. She goes, but it's going to really get us wrapped up into a world she says I don't think we want to be in. And she gave this example. She said, as homes get more and more Amazoned or Googled or Appled, whatever it is, she goes, each home is going to have its own ecosystem. So you're an Apple home, or you're an Amazon home, or you're a Google home, and everything is tied to the devices in that home. And I had this in my family, by the way. We all have iPhones, and I freaking hate Apple. It bugs me, but it's by far the best option out there for people like me. But a couple of my sons don't have iPhones. They went with a Samsung. That creates problems. I know it sounds stupid, and it's a very small thing. It's not, certainly not a big deal, and I applaud my boys for going out and getting a Samsung, because they're trying to break the Apple hegemony, but it does create some hassles with regard to transferring music from iTunes, things like that. Imagine if your entire family, your entire home is all wired just to Apple. She says she can very much see a day in the future when people may not want to marry into other families. And she laughs about it and says, I know it sounds ludicrous. She says, but you can have a situation where it's like, well, we're an Apple family, they're a Google family. I don't think this marriage is really going to work, because so much of our stuff is tied, to our way, our way of life is tied to Apple and Google. Again, I'm kind of with her. It seems ludicrous. I don't get it. But boy, she makes a compelling case that we should at least start thinking about these things. I kind of view it like my romance with anarchism. I've often described myself as an anarchist, and I'm not really, and I can explain why. I think there's always government of some sort, but anyway. I think it's useful to read the anarchists to see what they're saying, because they make compelling points. When you start thinking about how anarchism could work and why it has real merit, that gives you a better perspective on the freaking monstrosity we have in the United States today with our federal government and, to a large extent, our state governments. Same thing here. I don't really fear that people who are in the Google ecosystem are going to basically S-can a marriage to someone in the Amazon ecosystem. But I think it's useful to start thinking about it. And this podcast, March 11, 2019, Econ Talk podcast, got me to start thinking about these things more and more, and encourage you to go out and listen to it. One of the best tweets of the month, possibly of the year, comes from John Smirak. Smirak, by the way, I think the guy is brilliant. We're about the same age. He's a Yale graduate. I'm not. I love his work. If you get a chance, buy the Bad Catholic's Guide to Good Living, and then he has some other Bad Catholic's guides. They're freaking hilarious. Smirak is fiercely Catholic, fiercely conservative / libertarian. I'm not sure exactly what you'd call him. Probably kind of hard to pigeonhole, because first and foremost, he's Catholic. He has waged a relentless campaign against Pope Francis's BS. I hate to call it that, but that's a lot of what he says is, when he gets outside his proper realm. Anyway, Smirak himself is kind of, I guess I'd describe him as snotty. I hate to say that, because I think the guy's great. I love everything he reads. Everything he writes, I like to read. But one time, we have some common email friends, I guess you'd call them. I guess who doesn't? But I emailed him once, and he wrote back a pretty snide comment to me, gratuitously insulted me. It was like, geez, John, do you have to be snotty about it? But I think that's just kind of part of his DNA. He just, snippy, I guess everything's gotta be like a bratty response. But the guy is brilliant, so his bratty responses are often pretty penetrating. So anyway, here's his tweet. The free market and free society don't pretend to solve all problems. They just prevent famine and tyranny. That's a great statement, because he's absolutely right. And we know that famine and tyranny both come from too much government. Shortages, droughts, consistently have been the fault not of weather, but of government intervention to deal with what they perceive as problems. And they create shortages and whatnot. Now, the problem we have is a lot of people out there always say to themselves, but we can do better. Or a phrase I really, really hate, we're better than that. No, we can't do better than that. If you want to do better than that, that means putting the government in charge to do better than that, and we know the government can't do better than anything. The government's freaking terrible at pretty much everything it touches, with the exception of a very small area of competency, which I'll discuss at some other time, things that government does do well. But when it comes to interfering in the free market, the government never, ever does that well. And if you think that we can do better than the free market, I'd urge you to read Thomas Sowell's The Conflict of Visions. You probably suffer from what Sowell calls the unconstrained vision, as opposed to the constrained vision. And check it out, by the way. It's a brilliant little book. You can probably read it in an afternoon. Might be a pretty long afternoon, but I think it could be done. It's a short book. But let's break down Smirak's comment, his tweet just a little more. I want to talk about famine first. What you have to understand is there is no such thing as price gouging. Because here's what happened. Drought hits the land, or, there's a flooding, whatever it is, and now there's a shortage. The free market will step in to fill that void. After Hurricane Katrina, we know people were willing to get on their boats and go across the bayou with bottles of water and sell them for $100 a bottle. And people screamed, oh, that's price gouging, that's just so awful. It's like, well, yeah, but without that price incentive for them to go across the bayou with those bottles of water, no one's going to get water. And the response is, well, yeah, but we'll have the government bring it in, and we know how well that worked. And it never works very well. The government is just ham-handed when it comes to such things. They don't know, because they don't work with the pricing mechanism. They don't know how many bottles of water to get. They end up paying through the nose to contractors to get the water there. It's a mess. Just let the free market deal with it. And I think the problem a lot of times with these is people look at price gouging as kind of like there's a guy in the desert and he's crawling. He's about ready to die. He just needs some water. And he comes up to a guy in a Buick with a trunk full of Aquafina on ice. And the guy in the Buick's like, yeah, I want $10,000 for a bottle of water. That's not how price gouging works. Because again, there is no price gouging. What happens when it comes to prices is people look at the market, they look at the conditions, they calculate their risks, and they set their price accordingly, and they plan accordingly. It's not like the dude in the desert with a trunk full of Aquafina. That's not how it happens. Products are the conclusion of a series of rational events. Now let's look at tyranny. Again, this is fairly simple. Every government action to interfere with the free market results in people trying to get around it, and the government then having to step up its enforcement action to stomp out the people who won't comply. People want to be free, especially when it comes to the free market, when it comes to economics, because that's how they feed themselves and how they feed their family. It's how they get security. And the free market lets them operate in that sphere. When the government seeks to interfere with it, they're conflicting with human nature. And when you conflict with human nature, the natural law, people are going to try to get around it. And as they try to get around it, you step up the controls more and more and more until finally you basically have tyranny. The best example, I shouldn't say it's the best example, there are tons of them, but if you really want to see as a flagrant, an example that some people think was actually successful, study Diocletian. The Roman Empire in the 3rd century has fallen apart, and Diocletian came through and remade everything. I mean, it was radical, top to bottom, but he did it with the economy. The economy was in shambles, and he instituted this price controls, high taxation. Government took over industry in all areas, kind of like a socialism type approach, and he did it to save the empire. And again, it may have actually succeeded in its own warped way. But when you look what Diocletian had to do to enforce these free market controls, it's astounding. I mean, there are instances of wives and children being tortured in order to force the husband or father to show them where his wealth was, because they wanted to confiscate it, just to support the state. You actually had thousands of families migrating from the Roman Empire into the barbarian lands. And that's really stunning. That'd just be like a bunch of Americans uprooting and moving to Mexico now, because things are so bad here in the United States, economically speaking. And you can make your own connection to wealthy Americans who are expatriating, leaving the United States and giving up their citizenship to escape our taxation. You can make your own connection there. In my ongoing effort to make this podcast as good as possible, I've started listening more to popular podcasters to see what it is exactly they do. In particular, I started listening to Bill Burr. Bill fucking Burr! That dude swears a lot. It's funny. But man, it's F this, F that, and actually he doesn't really say it like F this, F that. He works the F word in frequently. And too frequently, quite frankly. But man, he's just so funny the way he says it and his inflection. I don't necessarily hope to imitate that, but man, he's fun to listen to. And as I mentioned last podcast, actually going back to the Catholic Church in his own difficult way. Anyway, I would recommend the podcast for its humor content. As for its substantive content, not so much. As for its moral authority, I gotta give it a 0, but hey, there you have it. In that last lighting segment, when I turned away and went, Bill fucking Burr! If you aren't listening to Bill Burr's podcast, that's one of his shticks. He just turned it basically, I don't know what you call it, basically, you can tell he's turning away from the mic and saying something, kind of commenting on what he's saying. It's pretty funny. I doubt it'll become a regular feature of the Weekly Demon, but you might hear it occasionally. Alright, I can tell you one of my favorite stories of all time, because it's centered around the NCAA basketball tournament. It takes like 5 seconds to tell, but it takes about a minute to set up, so bear with me. Every year I have some buddies come over, we have a few drinks, and we auction off all the NCAA tournament basketball teams, one at a time. Like a 16 seed will go for a nickel, and the higher seeds will go for more money. And then you get money back and win money based on how good your teams do. And by the way, all the winnings go to charity, of course. No gambling going on. So that night, my son Michael, he's a junior, he's going to be studying with his older brother Jack, who's a freshman in college. He's going to be studying math with Jack's girlfriend, who's also a junior in high school. And I've been kind of teasing Michael all week, like going and try to steal Jack's girlfriend, ha ha ha, just a stupid little joke. So, we're all sitting around the kitchen table, and Michael and Jack's girlfriend Andrea come walking through the kitchen to go downstairs to study. And you keep in mind, the guys at the table had no idea about any of this stuff. All they saw was Michael walking through the kitchen with this pretty girl, and Michael, who's pretty naive, looks at me and says, "Going for the snatch." So, the look on my friends' faces, there was like startled, looking up, like, "Did you just say that?" Yeah, I lost it. I mean, my friends thought I was gonna have a heart attack. My face was all red, and I couldn't breathe for like 2 minutes afterwards, laughing so hard. So I'm talking with a client of mine who says he's trying to track down some dope. It's legal in Michigan now, but we're at this odd spot where recreational licenses haven't been issued yet. So the only way to get it is to grow it yourself, or possibly have someone with a medical marijuana card gifted to you. Or you get your own medical marijuana card and you can go buy it, of course. So let's talk about how, my son's college roommate has a medical marijuana card and he's going to get me some stuff, but he gave it up for Lent. For some reason that cracked me up. Random joke I heard the other day, and I guess it's been around since the 1970s. What's the difference between a sorority girl and a Cadillac? Not everyone has been in a Cadillac. Advanced warning. I have downloaded a microphone app for my phone. I guess it's pretty good. It's a freebie. I didn't pay anything for it, so maybe it's not very good. So in the future, you might get segments of this podcast that maybe aren't as high quality as the rest of it recording-wise. I'm going to play with it. You're not going to hear it on this episode and probably not the next one, but I can see as spring rolls on, it might happen. Because quite frankly, here's what happens. I'm out in the garden, working the farm, whatever you want to call it, and thoughts occur to me, and I think to myself, I wouldn't mind podcasting about that. And so then I'll often make either a note to myself, like an email, or I'll do a quick voice memo, and it dawned on me the other day, why don't I just, right there on the spot, podcast it right into my phone? And I know the response is because the phone quality isn't as good. But I think if I play with that, I might be able to get the quality up. And I think there'd be some pretty good material there. So I'll be giving that a shot. It was my birthday last week. One thing I'm really digging about social media is the fact everyone knows it's my birthday. One thing I really hate about social media is everybody knows it's my birthday. I like the idea that people know it's my birthday, in the sense that I go down the street and people wave to me and say, "Hey, happy birthday." That I kind of like. I like getting birthday texts. Those are okay. But for some reason, I just don't like getting the birthday greetings on Facebook and LinkedIn. It's almost like those are kind of a pain. It's hard to explain. I guess part of it is just the awkwardness that it's just a pain in the rear to have to respond to each and every birthday greeting. One idea that I kind of like, though, is you can actually send people, for the birthday, you can send them like cool digital things. My brother-in-law sent me a gif of the best drunken moments, like drunks falling off their bar stools, stuff like that. That's actually pretty cool. He knows I like funny things. He knows I like to drink. He knows I like drunken humor. So he sent me this gif of people falling off the bar stools and other funny things. That's kind of a neat idea. Yeah, it's free. It shows you put a modicum of thought into it. So if you're gonna go on social media or send like an email greeting, why don't you try something like that? That's pretty cool. I had a revelation last week. Guys who were cool in high school tend to stay cool the rest of their lives. Now, I wasn't cool in high school. Now, some people say, yeah, Shesky, you were cool. Actually, I think I entered high school like kind of an a-hole as a freshman, but I was cool by the time I graduated. I can leave that to my classmates to decide. I'll take a poll at the next high school reunion. But last week I'm walking around outside my law office. I often go out to stretch my legs and get some steps in with my pedometer. Fucking pedometer! And I run into a guy. I'm just gonna call him Palmer. I won't use his full name. And Palmer was cool. I still remember he was a year older than me. And he was just, I remember hearing criticism, oh, he's just arrogant or he's conceited. And it's just like, oh, he thinks he's so cool. It's just like, no, Palmer just is cool. And I remember thinking that back in high school. I liked the guy, and I remember thinking, he's not arrogant, not conceited, but the guy is cool. I remember back, we were taking an ACT prep class together. Again, he was a year ahead of me. And they gave us these dots to put on our wrist or on our hand. I forget what it was, but it's this little dot, and it would change colors. And we're all kind of freaking out because it's changing all sorts of different colors. And Palmer is just kind of sitting there laid back, and he had a toothpick in his mouth. And his turned, I think it was like a real dark purple or a black. I forget what it was. And his was different than everyone else's. I don't know why this sticks with me now, 40 years later. And these things may not be reliable. I have no freaking clue. Maybe it's like the lucky astrological mood watch type thing. When people used to wear it, change colors to show your mood back in the 1970s. I don't know. But after all the commotion died down, the instructor went through and said, those dots measure your mental state. And you need to be in a certain mental state when you get ready to take the ACT. And then she went through and listed the different colors. The color Palmer's was basically said, this guy is cool as hell. It was just like, this guy is laid back, he's mellow, he's ready to take this exam because he doesn't care about anything. It's just like, well, Palmer's been exonerated by science, if that's what you call that little dot on your hand. But anyway, so I'm walking around the other day, and I bump into Palmer. I've seen him maybe 5 times in the past 30 years. And he actually lives in my town now, and I didn't know it. I bumped into him at a friend's house last year, Memorial Day weekend. Man, really tied one on that night. But anyway, I bump into him and goes, hey, Shesky. Like, hey, how you doing? And I had these headphones on, those aftershocks I talked about. And I said, wait a second. And Palmer immediately says, oh, wait, sorry, don't bother you. He got it right away. Shesky's probably listening to a podcast or something, doesn't want to be bothered. So right away, he's going to back off. And that's a cool guy. I can't tell you how many times I have my headphones in or something else, and people walk up out of nowhere and start talking to me. And it's like, man, can't you see that maybe I don't want to be bothered right now? Because when I have headphones in public, I'm never, ever listening to music. It's always I'm listening to a podcast or a book on tape or something like that. But here, Palmer, his first instinct was, oh, no, hey, man, I don't want to bother you. Now, I took him off because I generally really liked the guy and I wanted to talk to him for a couple minutes. But anyway, but Palmer was cool back in high school. He's cool today. Alright, that's a wrap. Check out the Twitter feed. Check out the Facebook page. Go to udemonpodcast.com for show notes and other information. As always, thanks for listening.